This video is brought to you by people who like, share, and subscribe to this channel. You can also support my work by buying me a coffee. The Fellowship of Guelphissauga continues, with the mayor clamping down on the rebellion. From Alberta to Nova Scotia, the Axe the Tax protesters remained steadfast in their goal to axe the carbon tax. They waved Canadian flags on highways until they got the attention of Pierre de Poilieve and Philip the Goat. But the mayor didn't bother to talk to them, since he was more concerned with flexing his strong mayor powers at the big mayor meeting in Burlington. His goal at the conference was to learn how to deal with his rebellion looming on the horizon. Can Carly of Klassen and the Elder Elves do anything about the housing cost crisis? And will the mayor's clampdown stop you from rebelling? Across the nation, the Axe the Carbon Tax protests held the line on the side of highways. For the third week in a row, the Proud Prairie protesters in Alberta waved their flags at passing traffic. They had no problem with staying there for so long, since they brought plenty of food and porta potties. The same thing was happening on the East Coast at the Nova Scotia and New Brunswick border. The East Coast protesters also had enough porta potties and food to last several weeks, and their flag waving eventually got the attention of some professional politicians. The goal of the nationwide protest was to axe the carbon tax, since it's been all economic pain with no environmental gain. But that was no easy task, as the carbon tax was the Lord of the Liberals' favorite way to take our money to cover the $10,000 a year raise for him and his friends. Instead of talking to the protesters, he hid in the ruins of Ottawa playing the blame game. However, one politician did show up to the East Coast protest to take selfies. Sporting his new contact lenses, Pierre de Poilieve visited the Axe the Tax protesters and took selfies with Philip the Goat. The Lord of the Liberals couldn't believe that someone was actually talking to the protesters. He called them conspiracy theorists for believing that axing the carbon tax would actually help the economy by keeping money in people's pockets. Meanwhile, back in the Shire, the mayor was dealing with his own protests. Not only were the Axe the Tax protests happening across the nation, there was also the tax sign guy downtown protesting against the mayor. The mayor didn't know what to do with all the protests, so like any good politician, he decided to split town. He drove his gas-powered car to Burlington to learn how to strengthen his strong mayor powers at the big mayor meeting. But before he split town, he couldn't help himself and just had to stop at a garage sale along the way. One of the mayor's favorite things to do in the Shire is hunting for old blenders at garage sales, and 'tis the season for garage sales. He dragged his wife along to another boring garage sale where he spotted a shiny used blender that he couldn't refuse. He snatched it up without delay and brought it home to his growing collection in his garage. His wife tried to tell him that she didn't like his growing blender collection and was getting bored with garage sales. But he didn't hear what she was saying, since he blocked all comments on Twitter. The mayor returned home to quickly pack for the big mayor's meeting in Burlington. He packed his best suit and made sure to bring 2 pairs of shoes since last time he went to a conference, he only brought one shoe. The big mayor meeting was his opportunity to rub shoulders with other strong mayors in Ontario and learn their strengths. He wanted to figure out how to get next year's residential tax increase down to 4% instead of the planned 10% that he promised to do with his strong mayor powers. But that ended up being a difficult task for the mayor since he's great at marketing but terrible at mathematics. Luckily, like most government-funded conferences, there was plenty of food and opportunities to waste time and taxpayers' money. Before the grand opening speech, the mayor took a seat in the back and opened his books. He wanted to study them before the conference started since it takes him a long time to calculate the difference between 10% and 4%. He had to figure out a way to sell the numbers to make it appear that he was making the Shire a better place to live instead of making it a little less worse. The mayor opened the Corporation of the Shire's books to study the numbers. Last year, his corporation received a $21 million boost thanks to municipal investments and rising interest rates. Their $597 million portfolio had varying returns between 3% and 5% based on the type of investment. The unmanaged investments in regular savings and high-interest savings account earned a 5% return, whereas the managed investments earned a lower 3% return. So whoever was managing the Shire's investment was doing a terrible job, since they could have earned a better return by simply putting their money in a savings account. The mayor wondered why they were paying them a management fee to get a lower rate of return. After an hour of work, the mayor eventually figured out the difference between 10% and 4%. He also realized that he would either have to increase his corporation's revenues or cut spending to fill the gap. Since cutting spending was off the table due to it possibly lowering the paychecks of the hundreds of sunshine listers, the mayor instead searched for new sources of revenue. Luckily, the creatures of the province were there to help him with $3 million in gas tax funding. He could use that money to cover transit costs, purchase new buses, and upgrade them with unnecessary features. The mayor also had the Shire's police move their speed cameras to different locations in town, so that way he could collect more revenue from surprise speeding tickets in the mail. The big mayor meeting began with a group selfie for all the strong mayors there. The mayor had worked up a sweat from crunching the numbers, so he was the only one not wearing his suit jacket in the group photo. Lots of other strong mayors were there, such as the mayor of Milton. He did his best to stay awake during the conference, since he's known for falling asleep during press conferences. The Shire's mayor chatted with him before the group photo and his nap time. He asked him about ways to increase his corporation's revenues to keep his strong mayor promise. The Milton mayor whispered his words as he told the mayor about the new fad coming from Saskatchewan called car clamps. These barnacle devices are all the rave at the University of Regina as a method to collect parking revenues and damage people's cars. After the big mayor meeting in Burlington, the mayor returned home to his wife and blender collection. He was motivated with new ideas on how to flex his strong mayor powers all over the Shire. The first thing he planned to do was to get rid of those pesky tax protesters. Unfortunately, The only way to get rid of the carbon tax protesters is to axe the tax, and that's up to the Lord of the Liberals. The mayor could put the local tax protesters in their place by flexing his strong mayor powers all the way to zero. If only he could cut next year's tax increase down to 0%, that would sure show them who's the real boss in town. Can Carly of Klassen and the Elder Elves do anything about the housing cost crisis? And will the mayor's clampdown stop you from rebelling? Stay tuned here to see. This video is brought to you by brighttutoring.ca. Don't let school get in the way of your education. Book a tutoring session today at brighttutoring.ca.